Hey guys. All right. Okay. There's 12 of you on already. Hey, evening guys. How are we? How are we? Hope everyone is well. This is more of a test of some equipment that I recently got to improve the quality of my live streams. I've noticed that using my camera that I normally do, the footage is normally quite dark and grainy. So I've bought a completely new setup for live streaming, and I was literally just testing this out. So wasn't expecting that anyone would be on here. But if there are going to be a number of you that will be on here, it might be worthwhile us having a chat, spending some time just talking about what's going on at this point in time as an impromptu type of live. I'm sure with the price cap increases, I think it was on Friday. I've been away. I literally just got back this afternoon. People may have questions, which I'm more than happy to basically field, and maybe we can just I don't know, just knock about and have a little chat basically. So if you do have questions, then by all means pop them in the comment section, and I will most definitely answer them as and when they come about. But again, thanks for joining. This would serve as a really good test. Um, it's interesting, really, because I've been away for the past week. We went to Norway to check out the fjords. And to be honest, it's the first holiday that I've had this year. So it was nice to be able to switch off for a bit. It's been all go pretty much. And actually, that's done me a little bit of good. I didn't post a podcast on Monday because I was away and just the prep for going away. I had so much to clear off my desk. The podcast just kind of was the sacrifice I had to make. But I'm back today, back at it as of, well, tonight, tomorrow, and all the way through next week with content. And yeah, it's been nice to get away and kind of just recharge and not have to think about work as much. And it's nice that when I was away as well, things have started to happen in the background as well for other things I actually want to do. So that's a good thing. But let's talk a little bit about the price cap increases, because I have a few thoughts. I've not looked at the detail in any great depth at this point in time. I think I'll be doing something maybe next week where I actually provide a little bit of commentary around what's going on. I think ultimately, though, one of the things that I think is abundantly clear is that the government have underestimated the impact of the energy price increases and the impact that's going to have for the inflation number. Now, the inflation number isn't really an important factor in the context of what we're talking about here, because we're talking about real money that people are going to have to pay because the cap has gone up. And I think it's really important to understand how the cap actually works. So the cap isn't the maximum that you will pay. It is, I guess, kind of like an indication of, with the standing charges, if you're on dual fuel, paying by direct debit, your gas and your electric, that's kind of like the minimum that you're going to be paying at this point in time. The numbers are staggering. And there is a big fear. So a lot of stuff has happened over the last, maybe 3 months or so. So the price cap used to be reviewed every 6 months. That's now going to be reviewed every 3 months now. So the argument was that by moving it to 3 months, it will allow for any reductions in the price cap to be introduced and passed over to consumers relatively quickly. The skeptic of you, and certainly the skeptic in me, kind of says that that probably won't be the case. If energy prices come down, how are the energy companies incentivized to pass that on to the customers immediately, knowing that there's going to be another review in exactly 3 months' time? And the reason why apparently the energy board was kind of adamant that the price cap review was reduced from 6 months to 3 months was so that these companies didn't go bust, regardless of the fact that energy companies on the refinery side are making stupid profits. And I've spoken about those profits here on the channel already. But what that basically means for everyday people, looking at the price of energy now, near enough being £4,000, is that we are going to see another increase when we get to January. next year, or is it February? February next year, and then we're going to see an increase 3 months after that. I was reading something today that was basically saying that by the end of 2023, so that's next year, energy prices could be at £6,000. That's the cap. So that's the minimum you could be paying if you're on gas, electric, direct debit, dual fuel. I really don't know. I really don't know what to say to people at this point in time. I've spoken a lot about budgeting. There's only so much budgeting you can do. Um, and so we need help from the government. And the Tory leadership battle is still going on at the moment. Boris Johnson seems to have been absent. I went out in London, if you watched the video from last Tuesday, and it's been interesting to hear the thoughts of just ordinary people in London on how they're feeling, how they're finding things. And personally, it leaves me torn because obviously here with the channel, it's all about making the best financial decisions possible, right? And I try to make sure that I can provide information that I think people will benefit from, or at least be able to take to make the best financial decision. And one of the big things that I have spoken about is don't pay UK. Now, I don't necessarily agree with the movement in terms of I think that by not paying, there are repercussions to make, but it isn't my job to dictate what an individual person does. You guys are adults. You clearly have to make up your own mind around what you want to do and what you think is right for you. With that being said, though, I spoke to a few people in London who were like, well, we don't have any choice. We don't have the money. We can't pay. A payment plan isn't really going to help me. I'm going to get into debt. So therefore, this is the way that I can take a stand. And I can completely get that narrative. And I can't say to someone who is feeling like that, well, you'll be making the wrong decision. That's not my call. That call is for individuals to make around whether it's the right decision for them. What I would like to do via this channel is just reiterate the fact that there are potential consequences down the line. And I will make a video next week which will talk about, what can you do if you can't pay your energy bill? What will happen if you can't pay your energy bill? Again, people free to make their own decisions. I know that there are a couple of questions in the chat already around free trade and trading 212. I'll get to those in a moment, actually. I appreciate you guys being here. But yeah, those are just my thoughts on energy cap. I did speak to someone, before I went away for the video on Tuesday, talking about the fact that she, and it was the first lady on the video, she managed to change jobs. And I think that's going to be a position that not a lot of people are going to be in. But if you are in the position where you can potentially put yourself out there, you're working in an industry where there is a little bit of a shortage in skill set. There are a number of them right now. It may be the right thing to do to search for a new income. And it's funny because I was reading something today, and it was a statement that said, don't waste time trying to save the pennies because sometimes it's more efficient to figure out how to make more money. And I think there's a little bit of truth in that. And there's truth in that because I think about, what are some of the biggest struggles that people have right now? It's the fact that there isn't enough money coming in. And I don't want this to sound insensitive in any way, shape, or form, but think about it pragmatically. It may be a better position for you to find different streams of income. The catch with that is it may not necessarily happen overnight, and you have to be aware of what you can do as a form of additional income that can help you, I guess, generate more money, bring more money in to counteract. Now, clearly, the argument to that is, well, a lot of people already work really, really hard, and it's taking on another burden to do something else, to take another job, which many people may see as completely unnecessary. And I would completely agree. I mean, who wants to have 2-3 jobs? It's hard work. But I think in circumstances where we find ourselves right now, what do you do? I don't have these answers. Again, it's for people to make their decision and to decide what is best for them. What I do know, and this is the thing that worries me the most, is we are in for a very, 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 very tough time. and speaking to people who do what I do, who are in the community of creators, who have podcasts and so on and so forth. We kick about topics and conversation pieces and say, what other things can we talk about? I talk about, Turn to Us is one of the charities that I'm doing a bit of work with at the moment. They are helping people access benefits and make sure that they're not missing out on any benefits. And there was an interesting stat that was on the podcast a few weeks ago. For a large portion of the people who took the benefits calculator on their website, the average that those households gained was about £5,273, I believe it was, by going through the benefits calculator. And that's people accessing money that they thought they weren't eligible for because they thought they were earning too much money. What I'm trying to say here is we've got to try absolutely everything. And particularly now, it is really, really important to not feel as though you should be embarrassed if you have to ask for help. There is no such thing. This is going to be extremely, extremely painful for a lot of people. So seek help where you can. And it's really, really hard. Look, I know there's more questions coming in here about investments. So let me just get some of these questions, and maybe we can circle back to this if it's appropriate a bit later on. So let's just go here. I hadn't restarted this, by the way. I'm testing some new equipment that I basically bought. And obviously, as I was playing around, there were a few people on here. So I thought we'd just carry on and just do some kind of like a Q&A and stuff like that. So this hasn't necessarily restarted. Again, the problem with this is it's the time that goes into answering people's question, particularly when I was in the hospital with chest pains for a period of time. I've needed to take a little bit of time back. And announcing that I was stopping this, I got a lot of abuse for it. So it doesn't necessarily fill me with a lot of enthusiasm to carry these on. But if I do get an interesting, response to this, it might be something that I consider a bit later on. But it is all about time commitment more than anything else. But like I said, I was testing something. So I just thought, whilst I'm here, I'll answer some questions for people anyway. Okay, cool. So, Shay. Hope you've been well. I have two indexes for my son, Fidelity US Index and Fidelity World Index. Is it practical to have both as they are very US heavy? Many thanks. I mean, both of them are US. One of them will be US exclusively. The Fidelity US Index will be US 100%. Fidelity World will be world, but you will probably have a large exposure to the US there. The thing is, with the markets at the moment, if you're going to shift this around, you're probably going to be doing it at the wrong time. So hold tight is what I would say, and maybe review this once we've got into more, stable grounds on the market. You do want to diversify. Diversification is really important. If you've watched the video where I did a comparison between the FTSE 100 and the S&P 500 a few weeks ago, I simply outlined the performance of the FTSE 100, our domestic UK market, and the S&P 500, and basically drew out the difference in terms of the negative performance. Now, you can't necessarily diversify your way out of negative performance because that's impossible to do. But what you can do by diversification is ensure that you haven't got your eggs in a territory that may be suffering, like maybe the S&P 500, because the S&P 500 was down like 20% at one point this year. The FTSE has stood up quite well. And the moral of that story was, depending on whether you are an adventurous investor or balanced or even a low risk, you should think about how your portfolio is constructed in terms of your equity exposure. And within your equity exposure, your spread across different geographical regions. So I bet that if you were to take stock of that portfolio right now for your son, you'd have a larger weighting, so maybe over 50, maybe 70% in the US. Some may say that that isn't diversified enough and you're overexposed to the US. But the question is, what do you do about it right now? Where the markets are a little bit shaky, you may be in the red, you might be better off just leaving it as it is, and just riding it out and then reviewing it a bit later on. That's what I would say to that. Those are just generally my thoughts on those. Charlie, When do you think Trading 212 allow new customers? They say every day that they're allowing new customers, but I've been waiting for 2 weeks, waiting for weeks. Do you think free trade is worth just using as you can join now? Yes, mate. I have no idea what Trading 212 are doing. I know that they're taking admissions from other countries. It just feels as though the list from the UK still hasn't been addressed. Many people are pointing the finger at regulatory issues. Um, I don't know how true that is, if I'm completely honest. So, if you the alternative really, if you want access to the UK and the US market, will be free trade. The only trade-off that you have there is that obviously with the ISA account you've got to pay a monthly premium for the ISA account. ISA accounts is the best place to start because of the tax efficiency. So that's the only trade-off. The other alternative that I can think of will be stake, but you only get access to the US market there, and they don't yet currently have an ISA wrapper that, as far as I'm aware, I'm pretty sure they don't have an ISA wrapper still at the moment. Just bear me 1 second, guys. I just realized I've just taken this off. I haven't even taken that off. There we go. Um, yeah, so they don't have an ISA wrapper. So maybe free trade is the next option for you to have a look at. I don't know if I've got my referral link because I think you still get a free share if you use a referral link. If I can find it, I'll post it in here so you can get a free share. I get a free share too if you want to use that, mate. But yeah, free trade will be a really good alternative that you could potentially use instead of trading 212. Because the honest truth is, mate, I have no idea when trading 212 are going to come back online. They're supposed to have come back online a year ago. You know, that wait list when everything got paused, I think it was at the back end of 2020 or something like that. It must have been around about 2020 or so. And we've literally heard nothing since. So you can't continue waiting. I mean, I know that I have had I think I had a free share come through from them maybe a week, 2 weeks ago. But I think that's the only one that I can remember. I've just posted in there, by the way, Charlie, the free trade link. If you want to use it, you don't have to, by the way, but you'll get a free share if you do. All right, let's go back up here. You're asking if there's any alternatives. So free trade, online trading. I mean, trading 212, online trading. I mean, you can trade with them. If you're looking at trading specifically, I would probably say eToro is probably a really good one that you can actually use as well. You've got to be careful of the spreads that they take, though, because that can be really, really painful with the spreads that they basically take. But eToro is probably the other one that I would use. I use eToro. So I've got an eToro account. So maybe have a look at eToro perhaps as an alternative. I'll post a link to them as well. Right, where are we? Where am I? Oh, there we are. So, just saying it's either pay rise or government allowance. Uh, negotiating a pay rise. You can do it, and people have done it. You know, I know people who have actually asked for more money from their employer. I think you've got to approach it in the right way, though. And I think, to be honest, most employers will be acutely aware that their employees are struggling. And so if you go into your employer and you approach it in the right manner, and this is what I would do based on my corporate experience, depends what kind of work environment you're working in as well. But I would more than likely, for me, because I was in performance related roles that generated money for the companies that I worked for, I would go in with my numbers and my stats. And I'd say, look, guys, the cost of everything's gone up. I need to have a conversation about maybe having a little bit of a pay rise to cover travel, for example, or fuel cost, or whatever it is that you want to stipulate. And you could stipulate more than one thing, right? And I would say, look, I understand that this may be a difficult decision for you to make, but these are my stats. This is my value to the business. You know, I want to continue here. I believe that, you know, this additional is reasonable to ask for, given everything that's going on right now. I'd go with maybe some evidence backed, like records that you can prove. I know someone local to us who went into his job, and it's a relatively new job actually, and he said, "Look, fuel's gone up. It's costing me more money to get here every single day. I'm one of the only people who's up crack of dawn. I'm one of the first here, opening up, getting started for the day. I'm supporting X amount of employees. I'm doing this over and beyond the job role. I'd really appreciate you giving a pay rise so that I can cover the additional costs for getting here in fuel." The company was like, "Fine, that's great." Now, that's a private conversation between him and his employer. So maybe be discreet about it, but asking for a pay rise is not unreasonable now. And I think a lot of employers will be expectant of that because they know that prices are crazy right now. And think of it this way: your boss, whoever it is that you're going to be having a chat with, they'll understand it because they're probably having to deal with those increases as well. So I would go with some evidence-based stuff. Government allowances, again, if you are struggling, turn to us.org. I'm just going to put their URL on here. Just go and have a look at the benefits calculator that they have online. It will take you about maybe 10 minutes or so to complete, but it will tell you if there's anything at all in terms of benefits that you are not currently claiming, that you are entitled to, and it will walk you through the entire process of how you actually go about doing that. It is essentially free money, your tax money that you're entitled to. So don't feel embarrassed for having to apply for this if that is appropriate to you. I'm encouraging everybody to do it because at the end of the day, there's a lot more and it's going to get a lot worse, particularly as we enter into the summer months. I mean, people are going to have to make choices between buying thermals and heating the house, you know, heating the house and being able to do their weekly shop, heating the house and putting fuel in their car to go to work to actually earn money. So something has to give. And please, 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 please don't feel ashamed for asking for help or going through a benefits calculator like that, because at the end of the day, if you've paid tax, it's your money, you're entitled to it. Do not miss out. Right, let me just find where I was. Here we are. Personally, I'm waiting for Lightyear to open an ISA account, and I'm going to them, give them a look. Good. I've not had a look. Actually, I have heard of Lightyear, but I've not actually had a look at them just yet. So they might be one on my radar. I mean, to be honest, mate, with the channel, I maybe I've done a lot of reviews on the channel. I've got, I think, maybe 300 or so channel videos on the channel right now. I, I'm getting bored of doing review videos, if I'm completely honest. I want to do something a little bit more interesting. So I've been playing around with different formats. The video that you saw on Tuesday is maybe something that I'm leaning more towards doing, speaking to people, having interactions with real people, and maybe at that point moving into a format where we can actually discuss, what they're going through, and maybe giving some tips that people will be able to benefit from. Something like the way we're doing on a live Q&A here, but in person. I want to mix up the format on the channel a little bit. There's only so many people that you can review before you run out, and I think that with the format of all of the reviews, there are fundamental things that I think that I go through and have gone through that are repeatable. So if you've ever watched the Trading 212 review or Free Trade review, or if you've watched any of the reviews, you know that there are fundamental things to look for. So are they authorized, regulated by the FCA? First tick. Do they have or offer you cover customer compensation via the Financial Services Compensation Scheme? That's another big tick, right? Can you actually verify and find information about this company? Are they on the register? Those are all things that are just standard things to look for, essentially. So once you know those things, you can take what I talk about and things that I point out in one video, like Trading 212, you can then go and look for similar things in other companies. And so I probably will continue to do reviews, but there'll be less of them because I've just done so many of them, and I want to mix it up a little bit. I mean, just as a prime example, I've been away in Norway, and one of the things that I've really enjoyed doing is, filming and flying drones and, taking people on that kind of journey. Maybe just showing people a little bit of that. And I will have a video where I'll just talk about maybe some of the areas that I visited over there. I was going to do a piece on the oil fund that they have out there. I might still do a piece on that, but I'm not quite sure just yet. But I will have Lightyear on the list of things. But the channel, as I see it, will probably take a little bit of a different slant in the future, if I'm honest, just to make it a little bit more interesting for me as someone who's been doing this now for 2.5 years. I want to pivot and maybe do things that might be a little bit more entertaining and, interact with real people and, yeah, change things up a little bit. But I will have a look at Lightyear and put that on the list. Do you think Vanguard, Daniel's asking, will continue to offer 10% returns over the next 10 to 20 years? Do you really think this is realistic? Mate, look, it really depends. Vanguard are known for being very, very good at building diverse portfolios and actually picking companies that go into their ETFs, their index funds, their managed funds, all that kind of stuff, right? But their returns are completely and utterly dependent on the economies, the world stage, if you will. If we enter into recessionary periods, they're not going to return 10%. Will they do that for the next 10 to 20 years? Yeah, there's a good probability that they will, if I'm honest, because that's looking more long term. But if we're looking in the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, probably not. Probably not. Because if the world goes into a recessionary period, then you're not going to see the same amount of performance. Although, with the way they build their portfolios and the kind of companies that they pick to go into the ETFs, they'll be big, strong companies, but they're not 100% immune from recessionary periods. But over the long term, 10 to 20 years, probably, yeah, there's a good chance that they will. In the near term, maybe not. Maybe not. I'm not expecting Vanguard to be shooting the lights out double digits in the next 3 to 4, 5 years at all. That doesn't mean that they'll do a negative return, but I don't think it will be in the 10% plus region. I personally don't think that. If you have a 20-year Vanguard investment, is it still good? I think it's still a good bet. I mean, again, you're looking long term there. So again, when you think about investment theory, timeline theory, you have time to ride out this blip that we might be going into, that we're rumored to be going into, right? Recessionary periods happen often. It's part of the cycle. So over a 20-year period, if we're entering into recession now or in the near future, 1 to 2 years, you're still going to have 18, 17 years to recover. So it's still a good investment to have. The question is, can you control the emotional side of having your money invested, looking at your money whilst it's down? That's always going to be the challenge. That's the thing that a lot of people struggle with, how they actually manage the mindset and that thing that's telling you, all right, maybe you should take that money out and just wait until things cool down. That's the thing that you need to be able to control, and that's often the hardest thing. What do I think about the issues with BitBoy? I've not been following it, if I'm completely honest. So I can't really comment at all. There seems to be a lot of controversy about a lot of stuff going on YouTube at the moment. Every time I see a video, and for some reason I always get controversial videos that pop up on my feed. Maybe it's because I do a lot of research on YouTube around what other people are talking about, and I see a lot of controversial stuff. Like CoffeeZilla gets into a lot of stuff as well, but I haven't paid any attention to BitBoy, so I can't really comment. Yeah, pandemic happened. We've had austerity for a decade, and now this, it sounds deep, but this is a currency war, not about solving social issues. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I necessarily agree or disagree with you on this. I think, look, I look at the world in a very unique way because of my personal experiences. And I think it's really important for us to acknowledge that the way you see the world is informed by your personal experiences. And to a certain extent, or to a large extent, I would argue, what you consume in terms of media and content that's being pushed at you. So let me give you a background in terms of how I see the world in the context of what's happening now. And my experience may be very, very unique, and people won't agree with me. Some people will agree with me, and that's fine. It's okay for us to have a different opinion based on our worldview. But this is my worldview. So when I talk about my story, I was born in the UK, fostered from 3 months to 8 years old. My parents put me in foster care, then took me away to Nigeria when I was 8 years old, and I lived out there for 10 years. Now, in a place like Nigeria, you don't get any help at all from the government. And people have for years faced issues like this where it's just you can't make ends meet. My family were not rich, they were poor. And I've been there where we had no support from the government, and it was all about you go and fend for yourself, regardless of whether you could. We didn't have any electricity, we didn't have any running water or anything like that. And with that as a backdrop to my experiences from the age of 8 to 17, well, 18, when I came back to this country, what I see now is I see that there are a lot of conspiracy theories flying around, things that no one's ever going to really be able to verify. And my background, my worldview, informed by how I have experienced life and the things that I've seen between the ages of 8 to 18, and what I know to be the standard here in the UK, is that I personally do not look at the world with a lens of this is a conspiracy theory. I don't do that because I don't think that it would serve me well. I think that that would inform my mindset, and that would breed a mindset of everything that happens is happening to put me down. And I think for me that would personally affect how I react to certain issues or how I approach certain things. And so I choose to look at things from a more problem solving, optimistic point of view. Okay, so this is the problem. How do we solve it? What's the workaround? That's how I tend to look at it. So when people start talking about, this is something that's all pre-planned because, the pandemic, we've got to pay back the money for furlough. 100% true. That money was borrowed. We have to pay back that debt. I mean, our national debt is absolutely crazy. Do I necessarily believe that, all of this, the war in Ukraine and the energy prices spiking to what they have and are going to be spiking up to is all a conspiracy for the government to claw back money to pay back that debt? I don't necessarily subscribe to that, but I can understand why people may feel that it is like that. My worldview is that, though, that I would rather problem solve and approach it from a point of view of, okay, this is happening, but what can I do about it? How can I manage my situation in the best way possible? Because I think that, for me personally, is more helpful. That's the way I see the world. I've done a lot of content, and it's been really interesting seeing people's reactions to the TikToks and the stories, and the reels that I've been putting out over the last week or so, asking other people on the street what their opinions are and seeing people's reactions to what other people have said. And it feels as though we're in this environment where now, like, we can't agree to disagree, that you're either on two sides of the aisle. You're either over here, you're over there, and never shall we meet in the middle. I don't think that's conducive. I don't think that's healthy at all. I think it's okay to have a difference of opinions. The challenge has always been, and there has to be a willingness to find a common ground. And unless we're able to do that, nothing is going to get better. People will blame this on the Tories. People will say, well, if Labour was in, they would fix it. Really? Can they magic a source of energy that will bring down these energy prices overnight? No, they can't. Can the Lib Dems do that? Can the Green Party do that? No. So there's a lot of finger pointing and politicizing of this for the right reasons, 100%. But I don't think that it's a simple fix of change political party and it's going to change overnight. I think where there is a valid argument is, at the moment, the Tories, there are no ideas. At least Keir Starmer came up with an idea and said, listen, we'll increase windfall tax and freeze the increases. That's a great suggestion, but you're not empowered to be able to execute that. And I think, people said that the government hasn't done that they've done nothing. Well, they kind of have. I think we have to have a look at things pragmatically. Is it enough? That's the big question. The answer to that is a resounding no. But I think, again, my views are informed by the way I see the world and my experiences. If this was another country, you would get no help. And we're extremely lucky to have had furlough, you know, furlough keeping people in jobs, keeping people in homes, being able to pay the mortgage. Those things are forgotten in times like this. Right? That money was borrowed. It's got to be paid back 100%. But who would have thought that the Tory government would ever bring in that kind of stuff? And that isn't me blowing, the Tory trumpet at all. But we do need to have a look at what happened for what happened. Furlough was a massive help to a lot of families, a lot of households during a very, very difficult time. We've just had £400 for every household. Yes, it's not a perfect solution, but it's still something. In other countries, you get nothing. So whilst we are struggling, my worldview says, well, actually, we should appreciate what we do have. Yes, we do have challenges. What's the solution? And again, people will disagree with me. People will agree with me. And that's completely fine. It doesn't mean we've got to fall out over it. But that's my worldview based on my experiences of the world as it is. And I think that's just what I would share really as part of it. And it will be interesting to see how you interpret that and how you take that on. Surely the government will have to step in for any look, they will have to. If they don't, I fear for what will happen. I really, really do. I did a video about the rich list, right? So the richest family in the UK, they gained 11.472 billion between 2020 and 2021 to make it onto the rich list in 2022. How does that happen? 11 billion in 1 year. If you've not watched that video, go watch that video. It is absolutely astonishing. But, this is where we're at right now, right? We need change. It feels as though the system is broken, and it is. We definitely need change, and the government needs to step in to offer some help. It's interesting to hear the Chancellor say today that even people with middle incomes, 45K, are also going to need help. And it's nice to actually see that appreciation. Now, for people who are on the lower end of the wage scale, you may be thinking, well, that's not fair. But this impacts people across different wage brackets in very different ways. That isn't to say that lower incomes do not need help. They need help first. But as you move up the ladder, you are going to have people who are on middle incomes who actually need that assistance as well, because they'll be on the cusp of the benefit system and they won't be able to access certain things because of what they earn. And so it's really important, again, that we're able to listen to each other and, agree to disagree when, maybe someone says something or voices something that you don't necessarily agree with, and being able to take that into consideration as well. But the government is going to have to do something. And if they don't, I just fear for what's going to happen. How you doing, Matt? How you doing? Right, I know that I've got quite a lot here, so I'm going to see what I can actually push through very quickly. Let me just do a brief scan and see what questions we've got here. How do they justify the price rise on renewable energy? Well, we can look at this in hindsight. We have not invested anywhere near enough in renewable energy. So this is what I've been finding out just by reading and doing a little bit of research into this. So if you look at the UK versus Germany, Germany invested in storing gas for the long haul. So on LBC this afternoon, they had the German ambassador to the UK, and he was saying that Germany have stockpiled their gas and they have enough. They've got 80% of reserves full at the moment. That will get them half the way through Christmas and through the winter period, right? So they have storage facilities for energy, for gas. The UK does not have that. We don't have massive storage capacity, so we can actually buy gas at a discounted price, store it for use later on. The budget for that got stripped a few years back. Apparently, Liz Truss was the one to strip back that budget. So what we've been doing is we've been buying energy on the market on based on the spot price at any given time, which means that as those prices go up, we're paying those prices. We can't strike a deal and say, look, we'll buy X amount and we'll store it because we know that that's going to stockpile us for 6 months. Apparently, we don't have that capacity. And so I don't know the ins and outs specifically, but that is a really, really big factor. It's like knowing that your food cost is going to go up and not stockpiling enough food to cover you for a period of time and going to the shop every single day and the prices are going up every single day. It's a fundamental error in judgment in the fact that we've stripped back the budget to actually store energy and we haven't invested enough in renewable energy anyway. And hindsight is a beautiful thing, but we should have spent more money trying to invest in things like wind energy. People have fronted so many ideas: nuclear, wave energy, like water wave, hydroelectric, that kind of stuff. People are saying, well, that won't work, this won't work. They've been quarreling and debating over what will and won't work, whereas we should have been taking action. The great thing about this, if there is a silver lining, is this should be a wake up call to government to say we need to find our own sustainable energy source. And if this isn't the catalyst to basically drive up investment in energy, I don't know what will. But it's one of the situations that I don't fully understand in and out because I'm not in the energy sector. I've been trying to find someone who is actually an energy expert to come on the channel or go on the podcast specifically, but it's hard to find people that you can trust have the adequate amount of knowledge to be able to explain it in a way that actually makes sense to everybody. But from my understanding, that is the main challenge that we have. We can't stockpile energy, get it at a discounted price for future use, like a country like Germany. We just don't have the capacity. We haven't invested enough to be able to do that. That's my understanding. Just to press in that I finally got enough financial resources to invest, and now this happened. Still, I know a lot of people have it a lot worse. It's very, very true, mate. And that's the thing. It almost feels as though you make progress, and something like this happens completely outside of your control, and it knocks you back a few steps. Look, I hope that the government steps in because this is where we need a little bit of intervention. So this is one of the big fears, okay, and this is again, one of the indicators of what happens with the country going into recession. Because the minute you start to see job losses, that's not good, because job losses mean you have people who are potentially going to go on to the benefit system. You have a reduction in the tax take. That's not a good combination. So far, we've not really seen it, and I hope that it doesn't happen. But there is a big chance that that is likely to happen, that we'll see the labor market and unemployment start to rise. Because let's face it, businesses, I have a friend who's got a business down in Leamington Spa, and he was telling me about his electricity bill. It's crazy. And this is for his business. And he told me, and it's in the thousands a month. And I'm like, well, how are you covering the costs? And he goes, there is no way that I can pass it on to my customers. So at the moment, he has to eat it. Now, he's not the only business who's going to be in that position. And when you start to have businesses who are incurring those level of like charges for electricity a month, you then start to having to look at your bottom line. And that's where you might start considering getting rid of staff, letting people go. That reduces your productivity. That then, in fact, could then reduce your profitability. That could lead to businesses going bust and further job losses. So it's a bit of a vicious cycle. But business is really struggling right now. So not only do the government need to step in when it comes to helping individuals, they also need to step in to actually help small businesses, well, businesses in general, really, because it's needed. We need a 360 approach here for sure. I have heard of Chip. They've got savings rates. They are good. I haven't looked at them for a while, but they do have really good savings rates on there. And I think you can actually invest with them as well. I think they had an investment proposition which they launched as well. Not as safe as premium bonds. Like premium bonds are really, really safe. Safer than Chip. Yeah, the problem with using YouTube. What's that? Is that YTY? What's that? Uh, what do you mean by Amma? Give me the breakdown of TY. I thought you meant YouTube there. Um, I think you do mean YouTube reading this. The problem with using YouTube as a hustle is that becomes repetitive. Using others' content is now the norm. Yeah, that's true. That's very, very true. I mean, let's put it this way: YouTube is kind of like it's not my well, it is kind of like my shop front. That's the way I would say it. I would say it. YouTube has been a great shop front for me, which has opened up other opportunities for me to explore this year, particularly when it comes to like TV. So the show with Channel 4 doing Lorraine, I'm booked to do another show uh, on September the 5th, daytime show on Channel 4. And we're actually in talks at the moment about doing some other TV shows as well. So YouTube has been a great shop front for me, and it does generate me income. But when you think about content creation, a lot of people are talking about the same thing. I'm not the only person on YouTube talking about this, right? But I think maybe my perspective is quite unique or different to other people. How much that is valued, I honestly don't know. Hopefully, it is valued. I mean, there's a good number of you on here right now, so I guess you want to hear my thoughts with my background in financial services. I think that does definitely set me apart. That I've got 15 years experience. I'm a qualified financial advisor, qualified mortgage advisor. I don't maybe talk about it or mention that as much as I should. But I think that does set me apart, and it's certainly given me opportunities this year. I'll have a lot of stuff tied to YouTube. So the feedback on the video from last Tuesday is that it's a really good format. People want to see me do more of that across different parts of the country. The one thing that you don't see with YouTube is, that it's actually quite time intensive, and it's actually quite money intensive as well. To shoot that video where I'm asking people on the street, their experience of the cost of living crisis. Well, that cost me, £500-600 to basically shoot. If I go to another part of the country to do that, it's probably going to cost me about £1,000 to shoot. So if I put £1,000 into a video, I can't necessarily and don't necessarily, well, I definitely don't ever see a return in the money that I put into the videos in AdSense. It has to come in other forums. So that's why I sometimes will work with brands, because that will allow me to recuperate some of my money and be able to put money into other videos. So YouTube is a really, really funny place. It looks really, really easy on the surface, but actually it's quite a lot of hard work, and it's tough going sometimes. And I try to always um, look at things on the bright side, because if it was just about money and AdSense and the amount of money that I can earn from making these videos, I would have given up a very, very long time ago, because it's not worth it for that reason. It really, really isn't. So yeah, but YouTube, it can do wonders, and it has done wonders, but it's a lot of hard work. It really, really is, and it's not as easy as it appears. Thoughts around building a portfolio in line with people's values. ETFs and index funds, for some ESG fits the bill, but for some others but some other values may not fall into that, excluding adult entertainment. Well, look, if you're trying to use an ESG ETF or index fund, you won't be able to be prescriptive necessarily about an exclusion of pornography. Some of them may have that as a as a filter for what they don't invest in, but you have to remember that things are so intertwined now, right? So it's not just about pornography. It could be, right, hotels, right? Because then we can get into the weeds here, right? But when I sit in meetings with investment managers and sit in investment committee meetings, the levels that it goes to is really, really deep, because it's not about the idea of pornography. It's everything else that goes around it as well. And you could talk about prostitution, you could talk about female trafficking, all that kind of stuff. You want to make sure that those companies are not invested in other companies that have some links to all of those things. So if you're buying an index fund and ETF, you won't be able to be that prescriptive. The only way you'll be able to be that prescriptive is if you actually go and seek out someone who is willing to add that layer of filter to it. And to do that, most of the time you need to go to a discretionary fund manager, which will cost you more money, and you need X amount of funds to be able to use them. They'll have investment minimums. So not all the time. It won't fit the bill all the time. So I think sometimes you have to be a little bit fluid when it comes to ethical investing, ESG specifically. If you have particular, things that you definitely don't want to be invested in, you need specialist help, is what I'm trying to say in those kind of instances. Do you still do regular shows like you used to every fortnight? No, I don't. Like I said, I might bring it back, but it's all about time for me at the moment. I put a lot of time doing the Q&As, and we did it for about a year and a half. And on a Sunday evening, an hour and a half sometimes, if I look back over the time that I spent and the metrics that I would measure against in terms of, it didn't gain me any subscribers. From an AdSense point of view, it did nothing. And when it started impacting my health, I'm going to hospital with chest pains. I start to question why I'm spending the time doing it, especially when I can be, using that time, spending that time with my partner and, trying to look after myself. So I might bring them back as a sporadic thing, like tonight. Like I said, this is very spontaneous. I was just testing some equipment that I've just bought to improve the quality of my live streams when I do them, and potentially other videos that I do. And we're still here, 52 minutes in. So this is very much impromptu. I might bring it back, but I can't promise anything at this point in time, especially as I'm getting a little bit more busy now. All right, let's see what we've got. If you have a stocks and shares ISA or lifetime ISA with Moneybox, would it be better to stay put or transfer to another provider before the recession? Do you have a provider recommendations? If you've already got an ISA and it's already invested in the stock market, I wouldn't really, necessarily advise anyone to start moving and jumping providers, because for you to move and jump providers, you've got to pay, you've got to cash in that investment, transfer the value over, and if you're down, you're crystallizing a loss. So you don't want to do that. You're better off just staying where you are, sticking it out. And just waiting. Again, if you've got one with Moneybox, why would you want to go to someone else? Who do you want to go with someone else? Who do you want to go with? Why do you want to go with them? I talk about this in the investment course. It is all about provider selection. You want to make sure you get that right, so you don't get into situations where you need to move providers all the time. But if right now, I would say just stay put, because if you move from Moneybox to whoever, you're going to have to cash in that investment and transfer the value. You don't want to cash in the loss. Emma, everyone's looking for answers, I think, and I'm a concerned citizen seeing a demise of living standards due to government design. Look, yeah, I mean, the system is definitely broken, 100%. Something needs to change for sure. It really, really does. Something definitely needs to change, and how that happens, I don't know. I really don't know. One thing that is for sure, though, and this is, again, I've spoken about this on the channel, the duality of seeing BP, British Gas, Centrica, Shell, and all these people make a lot of profit. The duality for me here is, I talk about investing, right? So as an investor, it's great, it's fantastic, because share price goes up. That money gets given back to the shareholders. But in circumstances like this, you have millions of people suffering whilst these companies are making profits. So as an investor, it's great, but actually the moral side of things, it doesn't sit well. And that's the duality of it. And in all the conversations that I've been having over the last few weeks or so, there is an argument for more financial education, right? And I'll say this, and it sounds like a platitude, and I will keep saying this because it's so important. But there is a segment of the society who resent the fact that these companies are making so much money, and that money is being given back to shareholders. What I talk about here is how you become a shareholder. It's a vicious cycle. But I understand that, if you're in low income, you don't know, and you don't necessarily have the money to become a shareholder. So how do you move people from here to here? You need social mobility. And that's the problem that I think we need to fix. And a large part of that is education, teaching people, letting people know that it is about financial decisions, financial habits, and giving them the power to be able to make that decision themselves, showing them the how, the what. And I would like to think that's what I've been able to do here on this channel is show the how, the what, in opposed to just saying a load of stuff that makes sense, platitudes, everyone nods their heads and be like, that's 100% true. But then it's like you're holding something back. And the business person in me, and I've given away a lot of free content, a lot of what, a lot of how on this channel, and people are telling me, well, you've got nothing left to sell people. That is true. I don't have anything to sell, but anybody. I don't have anything to sell people. My investment course, most of it you can find here on this channel for free if you have the time to go through it all. If you don't, the course you can go through, it's $59.99. You can complete it in 90 minutes, but you don't have to. I was told you can sell that for £1,000, but how can I sell that for £1,000 when I'm trying to empower people to invest? So it's me taking money from people that they could start to use for their first investment as a fee for knowledge. I don't know. That just doesn't sit well with me. We have an issue with our system. So we need social mobility. And part of that is education. Part of that is empowering people with choice, with knowledge, with understanding. And the duality of this is, people may think that I'm out of touch now and I'm kind of unrelatable because I have done a little bit of TV and I'm doing a little bit of TV now. I remember being here, low income, broke, homeless, not understanding how the markets work, not understanding how to invest. I know that. I was there not too long ago. I'm investing now, and that's what I'm teaching people how to do based on my qualifications and my experience. But I remember this. I remember this so well, too well, in fact. And that duality just doesn't sit right with me. And that's where I struggle with a lot of the content, which is why I've not been speaking about the market so lately, because I'm having an internal struggle with reconciling what's going on. And I don't know whether other creators feel exactly the same. Some of them that I have spoken to do feel the same, others don't. Um, I don't know. But something definitely needs to change. It really, really does. What value do you see in investing in new free social media companies like Rumble and Gesser, seeing the increasing mistreatment of creators on mainstream apps like YouTube, Facebook, etc.? Look, I personally, I wouldn't invest in those companies because I think they're just too new and the competition, the barrier to entry is way too high. If you put money into it, put a small amount in. If they get it right, they get it right. I mean, look, Facebook, Meta, Instagram, they've got a huge problem. I hate being on Instagram. I hate spending time doing anything on there because I've had so many people clone my account and they do nothing. They do nothing to help. You can't communicate. And why should I invest time um, creating content to increase their revenues when they mistreat people so badly? So I'm part of that pool of creators that feel aggrieved by Facebook and Meta and Instagram. But would I invest in an alternative? TikTok is huge right now. And I don't see how Rumble or Getter make the strides that TikTok have with the players that are in the market currently. TikTok had the advantage of the pandemic, everybody being at home, captive to their phone screens. That's not the same anymore. So there's a huge uphill battle from a competitive point of view. That takes a lot of money to be able to do. So I personally wouldn't invest in it. That isn't to say that you shouldn't, though. If you are going to do it, put money in that you're happy with losing, with the view that if it comes off, it comes off. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I would need to see them do really, really well before I personally put any money into something like that. But I definitely do think that there is room for a new social media platform to emerge, and I think that social media platform at the minute is TikTok. They're just changing the game. They really, really are. I don't know that I've got the answer to this, mate. To be honest, I don't know that I've got the answer to that. Would that work long term? I'm not sure that it would. I mean, we've been in a democratic society for such a long time. That's a huge shift, massive, massive shift. There will be a huge resistance to that. I don't think it would work. Yeah, I mean, look, this is the thing though, right? When you print a load of money, inflation ensues. And I don't know whether that was something that was considered. I assume that it was considered. I assume that it would have been something that they would have sat down, all the economists would have sat down and said, look, okay, what are the pros and cons of us printing all this money? Well, inflation is going to come down the track. We'll have to kick that down the road and deal with it when it happens, because imagine if furlough didn't exist. What happens then? So, I mean, I think we're quick to blame the politicians and the economists, but it's never an easy solution. If they didn't provide furlough, what happens? People lose homes, people lose jobs, companies go under, destroys the economy. No inflation, no, but inflation doesn't matter when you haven't got a job and businesses have disappeared off the face of the planet, right? So you print all of that money, inflation comes along, you deal with it when it's here. Well, it's here now. It just so happens that nobody ever foresaw that there would be a war between Russia and Ukraine. So you add that into the equation, and you have this really nasty situation where actually, what's the solution? I've been saying for months, interest rate hikes are not going to help. Not one little bit. It's not going to help because it's not the right concoction of circumstances or scenarios that has happened for interest rates to work. We need more supply of gas in order to match the demand for the prices to go down. Nobody can magic that overnight. And in fact, it's going to take a number of years before we even get to the point where we'll be able to solve that problem. So it's one of those situations where I'm not envious of Rishi Sunak or Andrew Bailey at the Bank of England, because it's a very, very difficult decision to make. If you didn't do furlough and didn't print all that money, there's a bad situation that would have ensued. They did all of that to try and fix that. Now we've got another situation that they have to deal with. They're dealing with the problems as they come along. That's how I see it based on my experience. And again, that may be stuff that people don't want to hear. I'm not here to tell people what they want to hear. I'm just simply here to share my thoughts. And that's my thoughts based on my understanding and based on my experience of working in the industry for 15 years. These are very, very tough decisions, really, really tough decisions. And we don't have a crystal ball to be able to tell the future. What's your thoughts on whether there is any chance, no matter how small, that we're heading for a Venezuela type recession? I, I mean, you can never say never. I don't think we'll get. I don't think it will be that severe, mate. I don't think it will be that severe. Um, I don't think it will be that severe. I think we will go into recession. I don't think it's going to be as bad as a Venezuelan recession. I don't think there's a chance of that happening. Not one little bit. The UK takes 3% of gas from Russia. It's all part of the WEF to cut consumption by the West. Yeah, but like I said, I explained the whole situation around storage. We haven't invested in being able to store energy, and that's our main problem right now. So we're buying energy on the spot prices right now at a very constrained market, and it's not the fact that we only got 3 or 4% of energy from Russia. That's not the point. It's the point of Russia is one of the biggest oil production energy producers in the world. When they put their prices up, there is an impact on the wider market, and that's what we're seeing. I mean, we're probably going to get to situations, and they're already doing this in Germany, where they're talking about you have to ration and manage your energy consumption. We haven't had that yet, but if that doesn't start coming down the track at some point, I'll be very, very surprised, because we need to be able to we need to have some measures come into place. We really, really do. Oh, cheers for this, mate. Like I said, these may not be regular ones anymore, because it is all about timing and time for me. But if there is a demand for them, I might bring it back maybe once a month or so and kick it and answer some questions and stuff. Um, right, I'm just having a little scan. I'm mindful of time. We've had an hour five at the moment. Um, do you know that Earth is flat? It's good. Andy, how you doing? Really good to see you on here, mate. Yeah, so the video in London, I mean, look, the plan is I've got to sit down and speak to my videographer really, because I have to pay him a day rate. So people like, oh, we would love to hear what people are thinking across other parts of the country and stuff. So, to my head, immediately it's places like Liverpool, Manchester, Birmingham, places like that I'd love to go to. But, that that is an investment of probably about £3,000 for three videos. Really, by the time you factor in travel, maybe overnights, Tim's day rate, um, it's a lot of money. And the AdSense revenue that comes off this video. Actually, let me just go and check. Right, so, and I might share this with you just in interest of full disclosure. Right, uh, so you know where I'm coming from when I say this, and this is where YouTube, people think it's glamorous. Yeah, it's glamorous for the likes of Graham Stephan and people like that who are getting, ridiculous views, right? It's very, very glamorous for them. For the ordinary YouTuber like myself, it really, really isn't. So at the moment, that video from Tuesday has had, how many views has it had? I think it's had about 2,500 views since it was published on Tuesday. And here we go. Right, let me just share this with you, just so you guys can actually see this. Where are we? See that one? Yes, this one right here. Okay, so right, so it's had 3,000 views. Okay, so it's gained 18 subscribers. So actually, the view count is actually 2,964. All right. So bearing in mind, it cost me about £600 to shoot that video. This is the AdSense revenue. £18 59. So, when we think about going to Liverpool, Manchester, Birmingham, right? I've got to pay Tim a day rate, travel, maybe hotels and stuff like that. It's probably going to be around about £3,000. If I can expect that, you start to ask yourself, is it worthwhile actually doing? These are the decisions that you have to make as a YouTuber if you're relying heavily on AdSense. Luckily, I'm not just relying on AdSense exclusively for the channel and for my business in general. But it's one of those ones. But I really enjoyed doing that video, if I'm completely honest, because I enjoy speaking with people and interacting with people. That's where I feel I'm kind of at my best, certainly face to face with people, and I really enjoyed it. So we'll see what happens. But I'm having a chat with Tim this week around other things that we can do, and interesting questions that we can ask the public that will hopefully be interesting and maybe get more views and actually have the potential to go a little bit viral. Who knows? Who knows? I'm just scanning through. There are still quite a lot of comments on here. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get to every single one of them. Edna, how you doing? Edna, you did comment a little bit earlier on. I think you were asking if there's any reviews on energy providers at this point in time, and my response to that comment was no, because the cap is going to be reviewed every 3 months. Anything that you review now will change in 3 months' time, so it's a moving target. So I haven't really paid any attention to actually doing reviews on suppliers specifically, because it will change. And it's such a hard decision right now whether you actually fix or whether you wait. I mean, I'm in a position where I'm actually on the variable at the moment for my tariff. I'm so tempted to fix my energy costs and lock in the increases, which will take my electric and gas to around about £280. Now, bearing in mind, in my household, there's only two of us in our household. It's just me and my partner. And so it's a really, really tough decision. As and when I make that decision, I might actually just share it as a video so that people can kind of maybe see what my thought process is behind it. But it's a really, really, really difficult time right now. Lots of tough decisions to be made. GT, I'm good, thank you, mate. I'm good, thank you. Um, yeah, well, I have people do say hello to me in London. Actually, I do get it quite a bit, and it's nice to meet you guys who actually watch the channel. It's really nice to meet you guys because I see usernames, right? But it's nice to put a face to that username a lot of the time. Cool. All right. So look, I think I haven't been able to cover all of the comments on here, but like I said, this was just a test for new equipment that I've actually bought. But we spent some time having a little chat, which I'm grateful for. I've been away for a week, and it's been nice to just not think about work or do anything at all. There are still some very exciting things happening in the background. I haven't really spoken much about those things because, um, yeah, they're still in the pipeline at this point in time. Um, but I just want to say, look, YouTube has been very kind to me. I know that I've had a little bit of a, a talk about the cost of doing things here on YouTube and how AdSense doesn't make sense. My philosophy around work and money and how those two things intersect is that money is always a byproduct of good work. And with everything that I've done on the channel, is been my focus has been to do good work. And good work for me looks like putting out content that will educate, empower, and show people the what and the how. That's been my entire goal all the way through YouTube. And thankfully, this year has been a phenomenal year. It's been very hard. I've had some health issues. I've lost a bit of hair. It's been very stressful, but the opportunities that have come along as a byproduct of it have been huge. And some of the conversations that I'm having right now are, I couldn't have dreamt this. Like literally, the beginning of 2020, one of the big things that I thought about was, wow, if I could ever do this and be on TV, that would be amazing. 2.5 years later, well, 2 years later, TV happened and TV is happening. And there's more stuff I'm going to be doing. I don't want to say this just yet, actually. No, I have got confirmation of it. But the day before, I'll let you guys know on Instagram. But I'll be doing a Channel 4 show daytime. And there's lots and lots of other stuff going on. And look, I just want to end this on a positive note. Like, we've talked a little bit about increasing incomes and, trying to do something that is going to generate an additional bit of money for you, because that's often the easiest way. And I guess more positive than trying to really strip back on spending, and that is necessary, right? But sometimes you'll feel more empowered and feel more rewarded and more positive if you actually find something that gives you more money, and if you are able to do something that sparks you, that really gives you purpose and passion, that will be the biggest rewarding and most rewarding thing you could ever do. And it won't happen overnight, but if you can stick at it, trust me, it will change everything. And I'm very fortunate I'm in the position to do that. And I'm able to do this now. And a lot of stuff is happening in the background that will be talked about a bit later on. And you guys have been on the journey with me, particularly all of you guys who have always been here on the channel: Edna, Andy, GT Playboy. There's a ton of you who have been following me since day dot. You guys have been on the journey. And trust me, I appreciate you for your support. I know sometimes a little bit absent and it feels a little sporadic sometimes, but trust me. And I 100%, I just want to say, look, if you want to do something, this is probably the moment for you to do it. In difficult times like this is probably the right time for you to bite the bullet and go do it. Don't second guess yourself. Don't think about it too long. Don't wait for it to be perfect. Just jump. And if it is something that really drives you, believe me, it can pay off big, and it will drive you and it will really spark you. I promise you. So I want to end on that positive note, because I think it's only right to end on a positive note in the midst of all of this craziness that's going on right now. But I appreciate you for spending an hour and 15 minutes with me on a Saturday evening. Have a great bank holiday weekend. I might jump on again maybe tomorrow afternoon once I've had a look at the price cap information and a few other bits and pieces. I've got a ton of notes of things that I would like to speak about. But thank you so much. Have a good evening, and I will speak to you guys a bit later on. Cheers.